Hi, I'm Roopa Farooki, and I'd like to tell you about my fifth novel, The Flying Man. The Flying Man is Mackle's story. Mackle's something of a chancer and a charlatan. He's a criminally clever man, and he's very used to getting his own way. He tells a very good tale. He's one of those people who likes to reinvent himself, and he does this by giving himself a new nationality, a new identity with every country he calls his home. And in doing that, he finds himself abandoning careers, wives, marriages, children in the process. He does all this because he's something of a gambler. He's a compulsive gambler. He's driven to lose as much as he gains in games of chance and in the game of life. We start with Mackle's story in the 1930s from his privileged beginnings in Lahore, Pakistan, and we follow him as he makes flying escapes through New York, Cairo, London, Paris and Hong Kong. As he outlives his peers, he finds himself humbled and abandoned by love, and he eventually ends up in modern-day France, old, alone, and wondering what happened to his life. You'd think that he'd be ready to give up on his game, but in fact he doesn't, because for Mackle, as a gambler, a game doesn't end with losing. The game doesn't end until it's been won. For me, The Flying Man is a story of the ultimate immigrant. It's about a man who fits in everywhere, but really belongs nowhere. It's about a damaged man who's in search of himself and who causes damage everywhere he goes, but somehow, despite all this, he inspires love. What inspired me to tell this story was my father. Like Mackle, my father was something of a compulsive gambler. He was a charmer. He was never held down by the baggage of friends or family or marriage, and he really wanted to enjoy life and live it in his own way. He was a huge free spirit, and he did abandon us when I was quite young, but despite that we kept in touch and we met up from time to time. And the last time I met him was about 10 years ago. It was in a railway station in Paris. I'd come in for a meeting with work. He was gambling at a coastal resort nearby, and we sat and we chatted. He had coffee, I had kir, and we talked about the people he'd outlived, the fun he'd had, the games he'd played, and that he was continuing to play, and also about the books that I was planning to write, and the book he was planning to write. It was going to be his autobiography, and he was going to call it All Gamblers, Great and Small. 2 weeks later, I got news that my father had died in that hotel in that coastal resort. So we never got a chance to write his story. And even though it's taken me a little while to feel ready to do it, I knew that that was something I was always going to do. I was going to take his story and I was going to make it mine too.